What if the most profound words Jesus ever spoke to his first disciple were not the ones recorded in our Bibles? What if a secret command, a hidden commission, lay buried for over 1,500 years, waiting for the right moment to be revealed? For centuries, we've understood the story of St. Peter through the lens of the Gospels. The fisherman, the rock, the holder of the keys. But a recent archaeological discovery, caked in the mud of the Sea of Galilee, has brought to light a message that both confirms and radically expands everything we thought we knew. Today, we journey to the very shores where Jesus walked, to uncover a lost basilica, a mysterious mosaic, and a secret set of words from Christ to Peter that have been silent for millennia. Our story begins not with a thunderclap of revelation, but with the patient scrape of a trowel against damp earth. On the northern shore of the Sea of Galilee, at a site known as El Araj, a team of archaeologists was working under the relentless sun. For years, this location had been a candidate for the lost biblical city of Bethsaida, but the proof remained elusive, buried under layers of time and silt from the nearby Jordan River. They were excavating the remains of what appeared to be a Byzantine-era church, a structure that had been flooded, abandoned, and eventually forgotten, its memories swallowed by the marshlands. As they carefully cleared the floor of the church's diaconian, or vestry, something extraordinary began to emerge from beneath the thick, dark mud. It was not gold or silver, but something far more precious: color. Vibrant, intricate cubes of stone, tesserae, began to appear, forming patterns and, incredibly, letters. They had found a mosaic floor, almost perfectly preserved by the very mud that had hidden it from history. The team worked with painstaking care, clearing away the centuries. As the full image came into view, they saw it was a beautiful, floral-patterned mosaic, a testament to the faith and artistry of the early Christians who worshipped here. But it was the inscription at its heart, a medallion framed by 2 lines of black tesserae, that caused a hush to fall over the excavation site. The Greek text was a prayer, a dedication from a donor named Constantine to the holy site. And it identified the church's patron in no uncertain terms. The inscription honored a figure who was, and I quote, "the chief and commander of the heavenly apostles." This phrase alone was a monumental discovery. In the early church, there was only one apostle who was consistently given such a title of preeminence. The mosaic was dedicated to St. Peter. This discovery was more than just a name. It was a powerful confirmation of the site's importance to the first followers of Jesus. The title, Chief of the Apostles, resonates directly with the role Peter plays throughout the Gospels and the book of Acts. But the inscription went even further, using another, even more specific title for him, the bearer of the keys of heaven. These words are a direct, unmistakable echo of one of the most pivotal moments in the New Testament. We find it in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 16. Jesus takes his disciples to the region of Caesarea Philippi and asks them a crucial question: "Who do people say the Son of Man is?" After they give him the common answers, John the Baptist, Elijah, Jeremiah, he turns the question directly to them: "But what about you? Who do you say I am?" It is Simon Peter who steps forward, filled with a divine revelation, and declares, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." In response to this profound confession of faith, Jesus gives Simon a new name, Peter, which means rock, and speaks the famous words, "And I tell you that you are Peter, and on this rock I will build my church, and the gates of Hades will not overcome it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you bind on earth will be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth will be loosed in heaven." For 2,000 years, these verses have been the foundation for Peter's authority in Christian tradition. And now, here at El Araj, archaeologists had uncovered a physical, tangible link to that very moment. A 500-year-old mosaic created by a community of believers that explicitly celebrated Peter as the one who held those keys. The oral tradition and the scriptural account were not just abstract theology. They were carved in stone on the floor of a church right on the shores of the Sea of Galilee. But this inscription did more than just confirm the church's dedication. It anchored it to an even deeper mystery, the location of a lost city central to the gospel narrative. As the archaeologists continued their work, they began to dig beneath the floor of the Byzantine basilica. As they went deeper, layer by layer, a story from an even earlier time began to emerge. Underneath the foundation of the grand church, they found the humble remains of a different world. They uncovered simple stone walls of private homes. They found lead fishing weights, the kind used to sink nets into the Sea of Galilee. They found iron hooks, curved and ready for a line. They found pottery and coins dating not to the Byzantine era of the 5th and 6th centuries, but to the Roman era of the 1st century, the time of Jesus and his disciples. They were not just in a church built to honor Peter. They were standing in the middle of the very kind of 1st century fishing village that Peter himself would have called home. This alignment was breathtaking. The Bible is very specific about the hometown of its first disciples. In the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verse 44, it states plainly, Philip, like Andrew and Peter, was from the town of Bethsaida. For centuries, scholars have debated the exact location of Bethsaida. The historian Josephus described it as a village that was later upgraded to the status of a Greco-Roman city, or polis. The evidence uncovered at El Araj, a Roman-era village existing directly beneath a major Byzantine church dedicated to Peter, fit the description perfectly. The discovery of the mosaic, with its explicit reference to Peter, became the final, crucial piece of evidence. It strongly suggested that the early Christians knew something for certain. They knew this exact spot was Bethsaida, the home of Peter, Andrew, and Philip, and they built a magnificent church on that site to commemorate that fact. They were not just building a church, they were preserving the memory of a sacred place. This act of preservation is a profound statement. Think about it. The people who built this church, some 400 years after the time of Christ, were living in a world where Christianity had gone from a persecuted sect to the official religion of the Roman Empire. They had access to resources, to imperial patronage, to sophisticated engineering and artistry. And where did they choose to build one of their great monuments? Not just in a major city like Jerusalem or Rome, but here, on this specific, humble patch of shoreline. They were making a deliberate return to the source. They were saying, before the cathedrals, before the councils, before the empire, it all began here, with fishermen in a village. This is our ground zero. The archaeologists at El Araj were experiencing this layering of history in the most visceral way imaginable. In one hand, they could hold a delicate, iridescent piece of a Byzantine glass chalice, a remnant of a sacred liturgy. In the other, a rough, functional lead net sinker from the 1st century. The two objects, separated by centuries but found just feet apart vertically in the earth, tell the entire story. They represent the journey of an idea that began with fishermen casting nets and grew into a faith that would shape the Western world. To stand in that excavation pit was to stand in a time machine, with one foot in the world of the Roman Empire's official church, and the other in the muddy, work-worn village of the apostles. And the village itself kept offering up more secrets that aligned perfectly with the historical accounts outside the Bible. Remember the description from the historian Josephus? He said Bethsaida was a village that was later elevated to the status of a city, a Dopolis, by the ruler Philip the Tetrarch. A simple fishing village doesn't just become a city overnight. A city in the Roman world had specific features: public buildings, organized streets, and very often, a bathhouse. A Roman bathhouse was more than just a place to get clean. It was a social hub, a marker of civic status and Roman culture. And as the team at El Araj expanded their excavation, that's exactly what they found. Walls of a large structure, clearly not a private home, emerged from the 1st century layer. They found clay pipes, known as asterisked tubuli, which were used to channel hot air through the walls and floors, a classic feature of the Roman heating system called a hypocaust. They had found the bathhouse. This was another electrifying piece of the puzzle. The presence of a Roman bathhouse at El Araj confirmed that this wasn't just any fishing village. It was a settlement of significance, one that had received a major upgrade, an investment in public infrastructure, precisely as Josephus had recorded. The humble village of Peter the fisherman had, during his lifetime or shortly thereafter, been transformed into the Greco-Roman city of Bethsaida Julius. The archaeological evidence on the ground was validating the written testimony of a 2,000-year-old historical text. The story was becoming clearer and more detailed with every shovel of dirt. This convergence of evidence is what makes archaeology so powerful. It's rarely a single dramatic discovery that solves a mystery. It's the slow, painstaking accumulation of data. It's the pottery shards that give you a date. It's the coins that name a ruler. It's the fish hooks that tell you about the local economy. It's the layout of the buildings that tells you about the culture. And it's the later church and its mosaic that tell you about the memory and importance of the place to future generations. Each discovery, on its own, is a small clue, but when you put them all together, the location on the shoreline, the first-century fishing artifacts, the evidence of a Roman-era city upgrade like the bathhouse, and the later Byzantine church specifically commemorating Peter, the argument becomes almost undeniable. The lost city of Bethsaida was no longer lost. Its address had been found. But this process of identification is never without its debates. Science, and archaeology in particular, thrives on challenge and reevaluation. For decades, the scholarly consensus pointed to a different location entirely, a site called It-Tel. It's a large, impressive mound, a classic tell, located about 1.5 miles north of the current Sea of Galilee shoreline. For over 30 years, archaeologists worked at Et-Tel, and they uncovered remarkable things. They found the remains of a major Iron Age city, possibly the capital of the biblical kingdom of Geashur. And because of this impressive history, and some Roman period pottery found on the surface, it was long believed to be the only viable candidate for Bethsaida. The argument for Et-Tel, however, always had a significant problem, a geographical elephant in the room. How could a place known in the Gospels as a fishing village, the home of fishermen, be located so far from the water? The traditional explanation was that the shoreline of the Sea of Galilee had receded dramatically over the centuries, or that a large lagoon once extended inland to the base of the Tel. It was a plausible theory, but one that required a bit of geological imagination. Furthermore, while there were certainly Roman-era finds at Et-Tel, they were relatively sparse. The site's golden age was clearly centuries before the time of Jesus. It didn't quite have the feel of a bustling first-century Roman polis. It felt more like an ancient city, with a small, later settlement built on top of its ruins. This is where the discoveries at El Araj become so revolutionary. They didn't just present an alternative. They directly addressed the weaknesses of the Et-Tel theory. El Araj is not 1.5 miles from the shore. It is asterisk on the shore, precisely where ancient geological surveys indicate the shoreline was in the 1st century. It is located exactly at the mouth of the Jordan River, a prime location for fishing. You don't need to imagine a vanished lagoon or a drastically different lake level. You just need to look at the map. The geography, the most fundamental clue, fits El Araj like a key in a lock. And then there's the stratigraphy, the layering of history in the ground. At Et-Tel, the dominant story is the Iron Age city. The Roman layer is secondary. At El Araj, the story is perfectly chronological. The lowest, earliest levels they've reached are from the 1st century, filled with the simple artifacts of a fishing village. Directly on top of that, you find the more sophisticated urban layer, the Roman city with its bathhouse, confirming the upgrade mentioned by Josephus. And directly on top of that, you find the Byzantine church, built to commemorate the importance of what lay beneath. The layers at El Araj tell the exact story of Bethsaida we read about in the historical sources, from village to city to a site of holy pilgrimage. The evidence isn't just present, it's in the correct order. This is the kind of narrative clarity that archaeologists dream of. It shows a continuous, logical progression of history in one location, a story that perfectly matches the one we've been trying to place on the map for centuries. The debate, for many, was shifting dramatically. The weight of this new, clear, and geographically sensible evidence was becoming too substantial to ignore. Let's zoom in from the broad strokes of geography and stratigraphy to the tangible objects themselves, the small pieces of daily life that, when pieced together, tell the most human stories. At El Araj, the finds from the 1st century layer are precisely what you would hope to find in the hometown of fishermen. We're talking about lead net weights, simple, functional, and numerous. These are the very tools of the trade for Peter, Andrew, James, and John. They found iron hooks, some still curved and sharp after 2 millennia in the soil. They unearthed simple ceramic ware, the plates and jars of ordinary families, not the fine, imported pottery you might find in a wealthy administrative center. These are the echoes of a working-class Jewish village by the sea. They even found the stone core used to create a mold for casting nets, a piece of industrial-level fishing technology for the time. This isn't just a village. The evidence screams that it's a fishing village, its entire economy and identity tied to the Sea of Galilee. And then there are the coins. Coins are the archaeologist's best friend. They provide precise dates. At El Araj, the numismatic evidence is overwhelming. They have found coins from nearly every period, but crucially, the first-century layers are rich. With coins minted under Philip the Tetrarch, the very ruler Josephus tells us was responsible for elevating Bethsaida into the city of Julius. It's a direct link, a material signature of the historical moment we are trying to pinpoint. Finding these specific coins in these specific layers is like finding a signed photograph at a crime scene. It places the key historical figure at the location, at the exact right time. But remember, Josephus doesn't just say Bethsaida was a village. He says it was upgraded to a polis, a city. And what is one of the quintessential hallmarks of a Roman city? Public architecture. This is where the discovery of the Roman-era bathhouse at El Araj becomes a game-changer. This wasn't just a small private bath. The excavation revealed a substantial structure, with clay pipes for heating water, mosaic-tiled floors, and vaulted rooms. A bathhouse in the Roman world was far more than a place to get clean. It was the social and economic heart of the city. It was where deals were made, politics were discussed, and social status was displayed. The construction of such a facility required significant investment in engineering, a clear sign of urbanization and civic pride. To find a bathhouse of this scale at El Araj provides powerful, physical corroboration for Josephus's account of Philip's upgrade. It demonstrates a transition from a simple village to a sophisticated, Romanized urban center, right there in the dirt. And if the bathhouse confirms Josephus, the layer directly above it speaks to the Christian tradition. For centuries, a crucial piece of the puzzle was a travelogue written by an 8th-century Bavarian bishop named Willibald. On his pilgrimage to the Holy Land, he wrote that he traveled to Bethsaida and visited a church that had been built over the house of Peter and Andrew. For a long time, this was just a story, a tantalizing clue with no physical anchor. But as the excavators at El Araj moved into the Byzantine layer, they began to uncover the remains of a large, magnificent church. They found gilded glass tesserae, tiny pieces of glass from ornate wall mosaics that would have glittered in the candlelight. They uncovered the church's floor, decorated with intricate mosaics depicting geometric patterns and floral motifs. Then, in the summer of 2022, they found the smoking gun. Embedded in the mosaic floor of the church's diaconicon, a room adjacent to the main apse, was a large inscription. It begins with a prayer to a local donor, but it's the second part that makes your hair stand on end. The inscription specifically invokes the intercession of the chief and commander of the heavenly apostles. In the Byzantine Christian tradition, there is only one figure ever referred to by that title, Saint Peter. Here, in black and white, or rather in stone and glass, was a direct appeal to Peter, the fisherman from Bethsaida, in the ruins of a Byzantine church built on the very spot where a first-century fishing village once stood. The connection is electric. It links the place, the person, and the long tradition of pilgrimage all in one undeniable artifact. It is the physical manifestation of Willibald's account, the reason pilgrims came here for centuries. They believed this was Bethsaida, the home of the apostles, and they built a monument to consecrate it. So let's pause on that inscription for a moment, because its importance cannot be overstated. This isn't just a name scribbled on a pot. This is a formal, monumental inscription set into the floor of a sacred space. The title itself, Chief and Commander of the Heavenly Apostles, is a direct translation of the Greek asterisk archistrategos, a high-ranking military term. In a Byzantine context, it's reserved for the archangels Michael and Gabriel, and for Peter, it's a declaration of his preeminence, his role as the leader of the church. To find this title, in this place, is to find the Byzantine world shouting its belief across the centuries. They weren't hedging their bets. They weren't suggesting this title might be Peter's home. They were proclaiming it, setting it in stone for every pilgrim who crossed the threshold. And think about the context of that inscription. It's found within a church adorned with gilded mosaics. Now, gilded glass tesserae were not cheap. This was a luxury good, an incredibly expensive and specialized art form. The gold leaf had to be delicately sandwiched between two layers of glass, then cut into tiny squares. Making and installing these mosaics required master craftsmen, who who were likely brought in from major metropolitan centers like Antioch or even Constantinople. This wasn't the work of a local parish. This was a statement piece. It signals immense wealth and imperial or high-level ecclesiastical patronage. This church at El Araj was not a forgotten backwater chapel. It was a major pilgrimage destination, lavishly decorated to reflect its supreme importance. It was a site designed to awe and inspire the faithful who had traveled so far to see it. The combination of the inscription's specific text and the structure's opulent decoration creates an undeniable portrait of a major, officially recognized holy site dedicated to the leader of the apostles. This brings up a fascinating point about how memory works across history. The church wasn't built on an empty field, it was built on top of the ruins of the Roman city of Julius, and Julius was built on top of the first-century fishing village of Bethsaida. Each layer is a chapter in the same story. The Roman urbanization by Philip the Tetrarch didn't erase the memory of the fishing village. In a way, it preserved it. It created a significant, identifiable landmark. When later Christians read the Gospels, which speak of Jesus entering the mole, the city of Bethsaida, they had a physical ruin to point to. The memory of the apostles' home wasn't just an oral tradition, it was anchored to the very real remains of a Roman city. The Byzantine Church, then, becomes the ultimate act of consecration. The builders literally used the Roman ruins as the foundation for their new sacred space, physically linking the Christian present to the apostolic past. Now, to truly grasp the revolution that the discoveries at El Araj represent, you have to understand where the scholarly consensus stood for the last 40 years. The leading candidate for Bethsaida wasn't El Araj. It was another site, about 2 kilometers to the north, called Et Tel. And on the surface, Et Tel had a lot going for it. Excavations there revealed massive Iron Age fortifications, including an impressive city gate. Archaeologists convincingly identified it as the capital of the biblical kingdom of Geshur. And since the Gospels placed Bethsaida in the same general region, the theory was that the first-century village was a smaller, humbler settlement built on the ruins of this once mighty Iron Age city. For decades, this was the textbook answer. Tour guides would point to Et Tel from the road and say, "That's Bethsaida." But there were always nagging problems with the Et Tel hypothesis. The biggest one is geography. Et Tel is over 1.5 miles from the current shore of the Sea of Galilee. It sits on a prominent hill, but it's fundamentally a terrestrial site. How could a place described as a, quote, fishing village, the home of at least 3 fishermen apostles, be so far from the water? Proponents of Et Tel developed complex theories involving a large, now vanished lagoon that might have reached the base of the hill, but it was always an awkward fit. Furthermore, the Roman-era remains at Et Tel are surprisingly sparse. There are some houses and fishing implements, yes, but nothing that looks like the grand Roman sopolis that Josephus describes. There's no bathhouse, no temple, no public buildings. It looks more like a village that continued to exist, not one that was upgraded into a city named in honor of the emperor's daughter. And most damning of all, there is absolutely no archaeological evidence at Et Tel of a Byzantine church, or any tradition of Christian pilgrimage. The memory of the apostles simply isn't there in the dirt. So, if Et Tel has all these problems, where does that leave us? It leaves us looking for a site that solves these riddles. A site that is actually on the shore. A site with substantial Roman-era remains. And a site that bears the mark of later Christian veneration. And this is precisely what the excavations at El Araj have systematically revealed, piece by stunning piece. Let's start with the most basic problem, geography. El Araj is located directly on the shoreline of the Sea of Galilee, at the mouth of the Jordan River. It's exactly where a fishing village Tamaush should be. For centuries, the site was buried under nearly 2 meters of silt and clay, deposited by the river during floods and by the fluctuating lake levels. It wasn't just a forgotten site. It was a geologically sealed time capsule. This explains perfectly why it was lost for so long, and why earlier explorers missed it. The very forces of nature that made it a prime location for first-century fishermen are the same forces that hid it from view until modern excavation techniques could peel back those layers. There's no need for complex theories about imaginary lagoons. The water is right there. Then, let's look at the Roman period. As the team at El Araj dug through the alluvial mud, they hit the Roman layer. And what they found wasn't a sparse village. They found the unmistakable signature of a proper Roman town. They unearthed the remains of a Roman-style bathhouse, a public work that signals urbanization and a certain level of civic status, exactly the kind of upgrade Josephus describes when he says Herod Philip transformed the village of Bethsaida into the Sopolis of Julius. They found gilded glass tesserae, tiny squares of glass backed with gold leaf, which were used to create glittering wall mosaics in the homes of the wealthy or in important public buildings. This isn't the material culture of a simple fishing village. It's the material culture of a prosperous Roman city. They've found lead fishing weights and iron anchors, but also limestone vessels that indicate a Jewish population observing purity laws, and countless shards of fine Roman pottery. It's a perfect blend of a local Jewish fishing community being integrated into the wider Roman world. But the discovery that truly changes everything, the find that provides the smoking gun et Tel always lacked, is the Byzantine church. Built directly on top of the Roman-era ruins, the team uncovered the foundations of a large basilica, known as the Church of the Apostles. Its floors were decorated with magnificent mosaics, and within those mosaics they found inscriptions. One of them, a dedicatory inscription to the donor who funded the church's construction, invokes the intercession of the, quote, chief and commander of the heavenly apostles. This is a specific, well-known Byzantine title. It doesn't just mean an apostle. It refers to one apostle in particular, Saint Peter. Think about what this means. We have a first-century settlement in the right location. That settlement is transformed into a Roman city, matching the historical accounts of Bethsaida Julius. And then, a few centuries later, Christians build a major church on that exact spot, dedicating it with a clear reference to Peter, the most famous fisherman apostle from Bethsaida. This isn't just a coincidence. This is a chain of memory, preserved in stone and mosaic. It demonstrates that for centuries after Jesus' time, Christians knew this exact spot was the home of the apostles, and they traveled here to venerate it. It's the archaeological footprint of the stories told by pilgrims like Willibald. It connects the gospel narrative to a physical, verifiable place. The evidence isn't just circumstantial. It's geographical, historical, and theological, all layered on top of each other in the soil. The argument for El Araj isn't just about disproving et Tel. It's about a wealth of positive evidence that tells a coherent, compelling story. Each new discovery at El Araj seems to add another chapter, another detail that locks the identification more securely into place. It's forcing a complete re-evaluation of the map of the Gospels. And this layering is precisely what makes the archaeological argument so powerful. It's not about finding one single artifact. It's about the stratigraphy, the sequence of layers in the ground, telling a consistent story over time. You have the first-century Jewish fishing village at the bottom. Then, built directly on top of it, the more substantial Roman city. And then, built directly on top of that das, the Byzantine church commemorating the apostles from that very village. It's an unbroken chain of occupation and memory. At et Tel, that chain is broken. You have a significant Iron Age city, yes, but the Roman-era layer is sparse, more like a small village. And there's no major Byzantine church built on top to commemorate it as the home of the apostles. The memory trail goes cold. But let's dig deeper into that Roman layer at El Araj because it's absolutely fascinating. The team, led by Mordecai Aviam and Stephen Notley, didn't just find bits of marble and fancy pottery. They found the architectural signature of a Roman Nemorsis. The most stunning example of this is the bathhouse. A Roman-style public bathhouse was not just a place to get clean. It was the social and cultural heart of a city. It was a place for business, for politics, for leisure. Finding a bathhouse, complete with its intricate underfloor heating system, the hypocaust, is a definitive marker of Roman urban planning. It is, quite literally, evidence of the urban renewal project that Josephus Flavius describes when he says Philip the Tetrarch advanced the village of Bethsaida to the dignity of a city and named it Julius. A fishing village doesn't have a public bathhouse. A Roman city does. El Araj has one. Et Tel does not. This discovery single-handedly addresses one of the major criticisms leveled against El Araj in the early days. Skeptics would say, where is the evidence of a city? Where is Julius? Well, here it is, emerging from the mud. They've found gilded glass tesserae from a wall mosaic right next to it, suggesting it was a lavishly decorated building. This isn't just a functional structure. It was designed to impress, to project the power and sophistication of the Roman world onto this Galilean landscape. And this brings us back to the fundamental question of geography, the water. For decades, the entire debate has been shaped by assumptions about the shoreline of the Sea of Galilee. The primary argument for et al., despite it being 2 kilometers from the current shore, was that the lake level was much higher in the 1st century. The theory was that tectonic activity and sedimentation had since caused the shoreline to recede, but recent intensive geological studies of the lakebed in the Jordan River Delta have completely upended that assumption. The core samples and sediment analysis now strongly suggest the opposite was true. The lake level in the 1st century was likely even sorms lower than it is today. Think about what that means. If the lake was lower, El Araj, which is right on the modern-day shore where the Jordan River enters the lake, would have been a perfect, protected harbor. It would have been the ideal location for a major fishing hub. And et al.? It would have been even further from the water than it is today. It would have been a high, dry, inland town, making it an impossible candidate for the home of fishermen like Peter, Andrew, Philip, James, and John. The new geological data doesn't just support El Araj, it effectively disqualifies et al. On geographical grounds alone. The science of the soil corroborates the story told by the stones. When Jesus gets into a boat at Bethsaida, you can now picture him walking a few feet to a bustling harbor at El Araj, not trekking 2 kilometers inland. It makes the narrative geographically coherent in a way it never was with et al. So when you combine the irrefutable archaeology with the new geology, the case for El Araj as Bethsaida becomes overwhelmingly compelling, painting a vivid, geographically coherent picture of the world the apostles knew. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? I'd love to read your thoughts in the comments. Does grounding these ancient narratives in a tangible, scientifically proven location change how you personally connect with the stories? If you enjoy digging into history and uncovering the truth, make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next investigation, which you can watch by clicking the link right here. Until next time, stay curious. This is Marco.